Good morning, everybody! Magandang araw sa inyong lahat. Dapat happy and good vibes lang sa araw-araw regardless of our situation. It may be raining where you are, but we should bring out the sunshine through our smiles and positivity. Hint na yon for today's episode because our topic is about hashtag happiness goals. I am Chicky and with me is my partner, Riva. Hi,
Hi,
Riva.
Vicky. It's truly a good morning and a happy morning to you and all of our
Yes.
viewers.
Yan, ako Riva. And you guys out there, what will make you happy? Dapat ba may jowa to be happy? O yung mga hindi alam ko ano yung jowa, I think that's an 80s term. It means boyfriend or girlfriend. Do you think having lots of money will make you happy? Speaking of money, we tackled the topic about money in our last episode. If you missed that, you can still watch the recorded video in our Life to the Max social
Yeah.
media platforms. There you go. You can see it on your screen. Meron sa Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Yan.
Yes, Tricky. So the good news is this episode can also be shared. Yes, for those who want to share it later, because I know you're gonna learn a lot. Lahat tayo, yes. So back to the here
Yes.
and now. Is there such a thing as science behind happiness? For most people, yes. Well, we will find
Ewan
out
ko yan.
later. Yes, just sit back and stay with us till the end. And we have our breakout session also after where you can interact with
Yes.
our other participants. I can't wait for all of us to hear about the riveting twists and turns of our guest stories. And
Yes.
of course, our guest doctor will also share wisdom that the Lord has given her on this topic. So before we go any further, we will present to you the people who will show us what true happiness is. So actually, it's really God, but they will share with us what true happiness is as the Lord has revealed to them. So let's start with our female guests. Topping our guest list is our resource person, professional consultant who's so passionate about her work. It's a work that God entrusted to her. And we're so glad that she's here with us in Life to the Max. So she is a certified Katipunera. Well, yeah, I'm also a Katipunera like her. And she was definitely in Katipunan for a long time. That's why she's a Katipunera. But more importantly, she earned her baccalaureate, master's, and doctoral degrees in psychology at the Ateneo de Manila University, teaching for many years at the Ateneo Psychology Department and the Ateneo School of Medicine and Public Health. Later, she moved to the other end of Katipunan. Yes, UP. Yeah. She was an associate professor in UP Diliman College of Human Kinetics, Department of Sports Science. She is also a practicing sports psychologist, providing athletes with mental fitness and well being services. She also finds time to provide mental health support to survivors of personal and community disasters and serves as a resource person in seminars, webinars just like this, workshops on mental health and well being. I know many were going through mental health struggles during the pandemic, so our guest today be able to help you in many ways, even beyond this. This brilliant superwoman is a single parent to 5 children with distinctly Filipino-inspired names, Yas, Sinag, Alab, Himig, and Likha, two of whom are already married. And of course, we know that above all, she is a follower of Christ. Yeah. So it is my pleasure to present to you our dear participants and viewers, Dr. Marissa Guinto. Good
Hello.
morning and
Hi,
welcome to the
Doc.
show,
Good
Doc
morning.
Marissa.
Hi, Riva. Hi, Chiki. It's so good to be here this morning and to welcome all our guests and our participants.
Yes.
Grabe, I love the name of your kids. Hiyas, Sinag, Alab, Himig, and Likha. They're so unique.
Yeah, may
You're,
listahan yan for isang dosena. Lima pa lang yan. Pero sa totoo lang, I prepared for 12 names.
Wow.
wow,
Ready, ready.
Hindi ko
Yes.
naisip. So anyway, all right. So our next guest is someone who can pass for a varsity player kasi ang super tangkad niya. She's a graduate of the University of the East Manila with a degree in BS Biology, and she first ventured into business by setting up her own company as CEO of Hera Events Incorporated. She then worked for 16 years at Mad Science Philippines and eventually moving up to become the GM for inspirational motivational speaker Frances Kong. Her last professional engagement was as chief HR manager of a security agency. So, fellow Life Maxers friends, let's all say hello to Rara Membrere. Hello, Rara.
Hello everyone. Hi Chiki. Hi Riva. Hi Tita Marissa. It's
Hello.
a really a great privilege to be with all of you today.
Yes. Ra, ra, ra na tayo. Go, go, go.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
team na.
And last but not the least is our male guest who graduated from Chiang Kai-shek College with a Bachelor of Science degree in Computer Science. Yeah. He worked in the IT industry for 12 years, 3 years of which he was stationed in the US. He's now based in cool Baguio. Yeah. Devoting his time as an HIV advocate working at Balay Marvi, the Baguio chapter of Love Yourself, a community based NGO catering to the needs of HIV patients, which include free HIV screening and counseling. He has guested in shows and other events, sharing about God's love and his faithfulness through his life testimony. Dear participants and viewers, let's welcome Mr. Darwin Chong.
Hello
Welcome,
po.
Darwin.
Good
Hi,
morning po from
Darwin.
Baguio.
Yeah.
Blessings to
Wow.
everyone.
Malamig ba? Malamig ba dyan sa Baguio?
Medyo, tsaka in-anticipate yung typhoon number one, signal
Oo.
number one.
Ah,
Right. Nako, take care. Alright. So, sabak na tayo sa ating panayam. Kailangan bang hukayin sa lalim? Nax, magpapaka-Pinoy dahil sa mga anak
wow.
ni Doc. Hindi, joke. Okay. Pinoy na ang games ng mga Junakis, right? Ask the millennials and Gen Z, ano ba ang meaning ng Junakis? Rara tuloy. Riva, ano ba ang meaning ng Junakis? Bridge the generation gap. Alam mo yan,
I
no?
don't think I'm in that generation, Chicky. Let's ask
Okay.
Google.
All right. Anyway, Doc Marisa, why do you think Filipinos are considered the happiest people in the world? Like anywhere you go, whether Asia, Europe, US, when you see them, they're always smiling, they're always loud, di ba nagkakwentuhan? What do you think is the reason behind that?
Well, of course, there's a perception because we are a very cheerful people. That's highly cultural. But you know what? That happiness index is, if you will, define that further, and that's what a lot of social scientists have been doing lately. What does happiness mean? Of course, it means different things to different people. So when you talk about this research, it depends on what research you're talking about, because lately when you talk about the global happiness index, the Scandinavian countries actually score very high, and we are not in the top. um, I think in Asia we could be. So when you define happiness as being cheerful and agreeable and adaptable, perhaps we could be scoring high in that. But other research talking about other happiness index, which includes, of course, not just the emotional, disposition of the person, but really contentment with how the environment is, okay, the government, and other aspects. Well, we're not really scoring very high in that. So I think it's really more
Oh.
cheerfulness, agreeableness, and having a sunny disposition. But that's not
Mm-mm.
necessarily equal to happiness.
Yeah.
May difference pala talaga, no?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes.
kasi Chicky, deep inside, baka may ibang nararamdaman. On the outside,
Oo.
nakasmile.
Correct.
Marami palang ibang feeling. So, Doc
Yes.
Marisa, as a psychologist, how would you define happiness? And how is it different from joy? What are some examples to illustrate that? You know, people define it based on what they think would make them happy, but with your experience and of course being a Christian,
Hmm.
how should we be defining this?
Well, happiness can really be dependent on a lot of things. It can be fleeting. It can be, momentary or dependent on a particular stage or event in your life. But when you talk about joy, it can really be in the midst of suffering or adversity or crisis. I think joy has a broader meaning when it comes to perspective in life and what is meaningful for us. So, for example, we have a lot of Pinoys who are working abroad and in very, very difficult circumstances. They are away from their family, but they're probably not happy with their situation, but they can have joy knowing fully well that it is sending their children to school, providing a good life for their families. So we can view joy and happiness as, of course, not separate. Again, I'll go back to our need as human beings to label and to, dichotomize, our emotions. But really, our emotions are fluid. Sometimes we are happy, sometimes we're sad, and that doesn't make us unhappy. In fact, it would be so abnormal if we were happy all the time. And we will not be able to distinguish what happiness is if we didn't feel sad. So I think this is something that I'd like also to share with everybody, that we don't have to delete negative emotions or difficult emotions, because they're the ones that actually help us appreciate. When we feel uplifted, when we feel appreciated, when we feel gratitude. So emotions is a very fluid thing, and it's part of a whole spectrum that, we don't need to be choosy and say, oh, this is the only feeling that I want. So going back to your question about joy and happiness, these are nuances of what we would say are more on the positive end of the spectrum, but they're not isolated from the other emotions. I don't know if
Mm.
I answered your question.
Yes, you did.
Oo, oo,
Very
very
well.
clearly.
Very clear.
Yes.
Yeah. So someone
Important talaga na yung yeah, go ahead,
go
Riva.
ahead, Shakima. Go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, important talaga that we understand kung ano yung, what brings meaning to our lives, no? Para we can determine, okay, I'm joyful because this brings meaning to my life. Yung parang ganon. Anyway, sige, Riva,
Yeah.
what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was saying one is circumstantial, one is not dependent on circumstance, and we see the
Yeah.
contrast between joy and knowing that no matter what happens, we have something secure, and that's our relationship with God, which Darwin and Rara will share more about, right, Chiki?
Yes.
Yes.
Correct. Pero bago sila mag-share, grabe kanina, everybody watching, I was gonna get tissue kasi naiiyak ako. Nag-dry run kami. Nashock ako sa kwento ng dalawang to, ni Darwin at saka ni Rara. Tapos nagka-break, nakalimutan ko magdala ng tissue. My gosh naman. So anyway, bago tayo mag-iyakan, let me first ask Darwin and Rara, imagine yourselves to be teenagers all over again, okay? So, kunyari, 18 years old kayo. Isip bata ulit kayo dito, okay? Complete the sentence. I will be happy if what?
Okay.
So, ano to in other words, at the age of 18, what did you think would make you happy? Okay? So, let's start with Darwin.
Ako kasi, I grew up in a Filipino-Chinese community. So yung upbringing ko with my dad is kind of different. Lumaki ako na with kamay na bakal. So, battered child ako. And ako kasi yung panganay, and then yung sumunod sa akin is babae. So yung expectation ng father ko sa akin is very, very high. And I'm always being compared to my younger sister. So kumbaga, ako naka second or third honor, and then yung kapatid ko is first. So I wasn't good enough palagi sa father ko. So if you will ask me what will make me happy nung time na yon is to be able to really meet the expectation of my father.
Wow, thank you for sharing that with us. I'm sure it's such a privilege because I'm sure you don't really want to share it, but we thank you so that we can understand you better. How about you, Rara?
I will be
I will be happy
happy
if.
Yeah.
if I if I travel around the world and I'll have my own family.
Oh, nga, ang sarap mag-travel around the world. Di ba,
Yes,
Riva?
syempre single eh.
Yes, ilang countries ba yan, Rara? I think around the world. Kailangan definite din kasi paano kung 50 countries lang pero gusto mo pala
European
100, hindi ka
countries.
pa rin happy.
Riva, European countries.
Oh, all European countries. Okay. Madami-dami yun.
Yes.
Yes. So, did this change, Darwin and Rara, when you grew up? Meaning, grew in age and maturity. How did your perspective change? How did you try to compensate for the seeming lack of happiness in your life? So, get Darwin first.
Ako kasi nga, since meron ng resentment towards my father, and then I was looking for a father figure. Sinubukan ko manligaw ng babae. I tried. But then parang yung sa akin kasi is, how can I give if I didn't receive? And di ba usually yung norms kasi is yung lalaki yung maliligaw muna sa babae, yung magpapakita ng emotion. But since hindi ko na-experience yung love, uh, I started to venture on the same-sex relationship in which na wala naman pong norms kung sino mauna. And then, yun nga, to compensate yung loneliness, I started going to bars and then partying. And then susunod is painom-inom ng beer. And then after nung beer, malungkot pa rin eh. So, and then punta ako sa wrong sets of friends. So also started to use drugs. Una po is party drugs and then eventually naging shabu. Yun.
Wow.
Wow.
How about,
Yeah.
yun ang yung nasabi. Thank you again for sharing that.
Yes.
How about
And
you, Rara? Ay,
yes,
sorry,
Rara.
Riva.
Go ahead. Go ahead,
Go ahead.
Rara.
Yes, Rara.
Yes, definitely it changed as I grew in age and maturity. I became so dependent with people, not knowing the time that I'm supposed to have an inner joy coming from the Lord.
Yes. So, we know people change very fast, very often. So,
Uh,
when we rely on others, nako, mahirap yan. And we'll see later sa story ni Rara how the Lord changed this. Yeah. Dr. Marissa, the desire of people to be happy, where is it coming from? Where is this coming from?
I think of course we all grew up when you looking up at our parents, looking up at our friends, and now there's a lot of social media, celebrities, endorsers, etc. So when we see people really successful and having the things that we want for ourselves, we start looking out of ourselves for that source of happiness. And since we don't know the science behind happiness, we think that if we have all of these opportunities in life, we will be happy. And so we go around in circles until we realize that happiness doesn't really reside outside of us, but inside of us. And so it's easy to really fall into the trap of that. And then when we have it, we don't get the outcome that we want. For example, a lot of celebrities perhaps think that, oh, if I get this endorsement or this movie break or this part, I'll be happy. But it comes with a lot of consequences. We think that fame, for instance, or wealth by itself will make us happy. And we say, I'd rather choose to be rich than, to be middle class or poor. Of course, that's a no-brainer. But that comes with a price as well. So it really doesn't matter where we are at the moment if we know fully well that there is a possibility, there is an opportunity to be happy despite all these circumstances, and that we need to train our children. If we are parents, we need to train our children to discover who they really are, what their gifts are, what their strengths are, so they don't have to be like anyone else and aspire to have what others have. And again, contentment is a virtue. It is also connected to happiness, as I mentioned earlier. Happiness is not a black and white thing. It's connected to other emotions and other dispositions. So contentment is something that is valued. However, of course, our society tells us that the more the better. We have to aspire for more friends, more popularity, more wealth, only to find out that when we get there, it's not really gonna make us happy. And so we want more. And the more, and as we go into that cycle, the sadder we become, the more discontented we become because we're not getting enough. And then that's where addiction comes in and all of this, mental health problems, because we don't seem to find what we're looking for. Did I answer your question?
Yes,
Yes. Grabe, I
definitely.
like the part where you said na happiness is not based on outside, but it's inside. Kasi nga, 'di ba, a lot of people nowadays, pag madami kang followers, madaming nagla-like sa'yo, happy ka. Pero pag halimbawa 50 lang yung nag-like sa'yo, there must be something wrong with me. Parang ganun agad. But then they
Yeah.
don't really realize the more followers you have, the more open you have to bashers. 'Di ba? So problems
Yeah.
din. So it has to be from inside. Thank you. That's a
Yeah.
good reminder. Okay. Back to you, Rara and Darwin. Eto na. Oh my gosh. Eto na ang tanong. What major event or events in your life shook you and tested you? Oh, this time si Rara muna. Let's hear from you first.
One of the major events that shook and tested me, and really the worst 2 minutes of my life, was when my mom got diagnosed with myeloma. It's a bone marrow CA. Okay, and when after she passed away after 2 years. Just this May 2023, I got diagnosed with breast CA.
How are you now? Are you okay?
By God's grace, Chiki, I am really recuperating well.
Wow, praise God. I can see it. Happy, happy ka. Laki ng smile mo. And I'm also happy for you. Cheering. Yes.
Thank
Yes.
Breast
you.
cancer survivor din ako eh. 4 years. Okay. How
Sticky
about
note.
you, Darwin? Let's hear from you.
Yes po. Ako naman po, katulad po ng introduction kanina, I used to work in the US for more than 6 years, so I'm earning 6 digits. So I had a good life, but I wasn't a good steward do sa blessing ng Lord sa akin. When I was 30 years old, doon ko na-experience yung quarter life crisis na I wasn't happy. Sabi ko, successful naman ako, ba't di ako masaya? And then I realized na kaya pala di ako masaya, I was proving my father wrong. So doon ko na-realize din na proving someone wrong doesn't make things right. So kaya pag-uwi ko nung from the US, doon nga nag-start yung drinking and then sa drugs. So naging drug addict po ako for 7 years. And doon naubos yung lahat ng savings ko. And then I had to move back to my family to sa Binondo. Inamin ko sa kanila and they really tried to help me. But nung time kasi na yun, parang very helpless case na rin ako eh. Dahil every time na lumalabas ako was trying to look forward, yung hinala sa akin ng father ko is nagda-drugs. So parang ako, nagrebelde ako lalo na sabi ko, okay, might as well, nagawin ko na lang na din, kung yun din yung iniisip niya. And then, nasunugan po kami nung time na yun, di po dahil sa akin, na damay lang po kami sa sunog. Nung lumipat sila sa bagong bahay, my father told me to gracefully exit. So, pinalayas po ako sa amin. So, I experienced na maging palabi po sa kalsada for almost a month. And then, yung mga kumupo po sa akin is mga drug addict din. And in order for me to survive, I had to do what they're doing. So, I had to sell drugs and at the same time, exchange sa drugs is sex. So parang prostitution na rin. And then that goes on until I felt na my health deteriorated. And then when I got myself tested, I found out that I'm also HIV positive. Yun.
Wow, grabe yung pinagdaanan nyo. At pinagdadaanan nyo pa rin. I know, the battle is not over, but, well, we know the battle belongs to the Lord. And we see how God has really used, everything you went through to bring you to where you are today. So how did these events take a toll on you? Well, syempre, just by listening, I know sobrang laki ng impact. Pero more importantly, how has it changed your disposition or yung attitude nyo towards life? Kasi pwedeng give up na lang, di ba? Ano ba naman to? Ang daming problema, tapos ang hirap na. So how was it for you, Rara?
You know what? I resigned from work last August of 2022. I got depressed for 9 months. Okay, it was very significant months, birthing months for me. Para akong nagbuntis ng depression for 9 months. And you know what? The most debilitating emotion was when my family turned their back to me, because it was also very hard for them to be with somebody who was so depressed. And the only contentment that I had was whenever I fetched my two nieces from school and spent major seasons with them was definitely a contentment to me. But I know
Rara, tanong ko lang, no? What brought
Yes.
about the depression? Was it the death of your mom?
Yes, that was also one of the triggers when my mom passed away. I didn't process well because when my mom passed away, natabunan ng work. Puro ako work, work, work. Okay, but when I resigned last year, naku, yan na. Diyan na lahat sumabog sa akin ng depression. Kasi, of course, I was idle, I was doing nothing. So, yan na, natambakan na talaga ako ng depression. So, also that time, but I know in my heart that there was a big void lacking in me, No service for the Lord. I withdrew from friends. I would just like to go out if I just with my family. All the things, that I love, that I used to do, I hate to do it.
Wow.
Pero can I just ask quickly, when you got depressed, was God in your life already? Do you have a relationship with the Lord already or wala pa?
Yes.
Meron
Yes,
na.
meron na, Chiki. 2001 pa lang, I already gave my life to the Lord.
Oh, okay. So it
Yeah.
can really happen, no, na even if you
Yes.
have a relationship with the Lord, you can still get depressed. But the important thing is we don't stay depressed, right? Okay. Riva?
Yes, tricky. uh, like what Doc Marisa said earlier, it's similar to, of course, I know depression is not the same as sadness. It's similar to what she said that, of course, we will have negative emotions because we're human. But the difference being in the Lord is how He gets us out of it because we won't be able to do it on our own. And how long it stays, like you said, we don't get stuck in it because God makes a way for us to see what life truly is in His eyes. And there is hope. And depression. I know, Rara, like what you shared, hopelessness. Parang ganun yung feeling, na wala nang motivation whatsoever. So, Darwin, how about you? What was the impact ito, yung mga nangyari sa'yo, and ano yung naging change in your disposition?
Sa akin naman, kabaliktaran, I still don't know the Lord. So, question ko si Lord, sabi ko, bakit mo ako sinumpa na you took everything away, including my family. Nung time na yun, kasi di ko rin maintindihan, dahil sabi ng father ko sa akin, mas nanaisin niyang marinig na nagpakamatay na lang kaysa umuwi sa bahay. And then my mom introduced me sa iba as pamangkin. So it's as a son, parang ang hirap, ang sakit. And then parang yung drama ko nga before is, sabi ko, buti pa yung basura may tamang kalagyan. Ako, wala, pakalat-kalat lang sa kalsada sa Cubao.
Whew.
Yeah.
Let's breathe.
Can I share something about,
Yes, Doc
yeah.
Marisa, please.
Yeah, so first, as I was listening to Rara, of course, when you have depression, it's not a sign of lack of faith or spirituality. Depression is a reality, it's like any other form of illness. It's like, let's say, having a fracture when you get injured. It's a fracture of your heart and your mind, especially after grieving the loss of a loved one. No, as Rara said, um, she didn't have enough time to grieve the loss of her mother, whom she took care of for many, many years. And to suddenly have that gone out of your life is a major thing. However, she did not process it because part of grieving is depression, is sadness, severe sadness. But you can only postpone it, but you cannot run from it. And so her depression episode is a legitimate episode, whether or not she was already having an intimate relationship with the Lord or not. It doesn't mean that you have less faith if you have depression. And I think this is something that we need to address even in the church, that people who go through depression are not less prayerful, less of believers, or less faithful. It's just like, if people get cancer, doesn't mean they have less faith, or if people have get injured or brain damage or even diabetes or some cardiovascular conditions, doesn't make you less of a believer. And so I think we need to disabuse our minds and our hearts and even our own judgments about people who are going through depression. And depression is real. It has its symptoms, it has its um, timeline, it has its own treatment, and so we need to be able to understand that and educate ourselves. And so I just got struck with the question a while ago. Were you already in the Lord or a believer when you got depressed? Yes, it can happen to the most faithful spiritual person. In fact, we've already heard news about even pastors or priests, or people who have mentored others, take their own lives, not because they no longer believe in the Lord, but because that's part of clinical depression, and they are no less of human beings because of that ultimate solution that they found in their lives. No, and then of
Mm-mm.
course with the experience of Darwin, one of the things that really strikes us is the loss of significant relationships in the life of Darwin. No? The family relationship, not even being identified with any family, pamangkin instead of a son, leaving the house, etc., and palaboy-laboy, and attaching his identity to fellow drug users who at least had the compassion to take him in. Of course, we would say, "Oh, that's a kind of a bad influence." But you know what? When we think about our capacity to influence people, sometimes we lack that compassion and empathy, and that's why many of uh, many of our church members go find their own relationship with others, because there's a lot of discrimination. There's a lot of exclusiveness, and I say this with boldness because we have to face it. Sometimes, in our effort to be, to live our own faith, is we exclude others who do not exhibit the same patterns of behaviors that we consider to be acceptable or not. And we need to also understand that there's a difference between spirituality and religion. When we say that, we all know that abstractly, but how does it look like in everyday life? When we see somebody having difficulty or falling into addiction or prostitution, or even having all kinds of problems in their lives, there's a thought bubble, that maybe they did something wrong to deserve it, or maybe the Lord is angry with them, or all kinds of judgments. But at the heart of our relationship with the Lord is compassion. And I think we have to remind ourselves that when we encounter people who are difficulty, like for example Rara going through depression and difficult understanding her why she is consistently negative and complaining about life. And to understand that depression is a real condition. For Darwin to be going around and looking for attachment is a real thing, and it could be any one of us. We are here only by God's grace, and we cannot feel entitled to this life. I don't know if that provided some sense, Rara,
Yes.
Darwin.
Yeah.
Sobra.
Definitely.
I like the part where you said, nag-notes ako eh.
Yes.
Where you said,
Bilis ni Chicky.
depression is real. Kasi a lot of people are saying, di ba, na, oh, you know the Lord, you read the Bible, nasaan ang faith mo? Hindi ka pwedeng
Yes.
ma-depress. Di ba, may mga ganon.
In
But you
fact,
Yeah.
clarified, yeah,
yeah,
go.
that's the worst thing that we can actually say to somebody who is
Yes.
depressed, that you just have to pray, and you just have to increase your faith, because it makes them
Yes,
feel worse. It's like,
yes,
I don't have enough faith. I probably am gonna be burning in hell for feeling this way, or maybe the Lord doesn't anymore love me because he can't take away this depression.
mm-mm,
Sometimes we really have to just listen and give our heart, that
yeah,
open heart. We don't have to say anything. Advice is not even suggested. If you don't know what to say, it's better to keep quiet and just open your heart and cry with that person, suffer with that person.
yeah,
Sometimes what we say, even if we're so well meaning, hurts other people further.
yeah,
And it can be our
correct.
family member, it can be our best friend, it can be our better half, or what, in our effort
Mm-mm,
to solve the problem, we suggest things that make it hard. Like, for example, the Lord won't give you anything that you cannot handle.
yeah,
Oh goodness, a
no
lot of people,
favorite statement.
that's not the way to assure somebody. It's like, I remember myself hearing that, no, na the Lord will not give you anything that you cannot handle. At a certain point, I would answer back and say, you know what, Lord, you have more confidence in me than I am myself. Stop it. I don't want anything of this confidence you have in me. And I would tell
Yeah,
people, you change places with me. And if I
right,
say that to you, let's see how you would react. And so
right.
this is something that is not advisable. Let us stop saying that to people.
Doc
Thank
Marisa,
you.
You
yes,
know,
you said,
you know what,
okay, sorry,
Shiki?
there's a
That,
comment here. Yeah, I'll just read it, Chicky. From Cricket.
Sure.
Hi, Cricket. True, Dr. Marisa, there is discrimination even in our own church when they think you have depression. They also do not believe that certain individuals need medication. They could not distinguish different types of depression. They always think all mental illnesses are the same. Oh, yeah. Well, we should be reliant on the Holy Spirit on what to say. As Doc Marie said, Doc, follow up lang with what you said. You said not to say those words, and it's understandable why, because people are going through, uh, of course, something that sometimes you don't really need words to comfort them. But how about when there are times when people need to hear words of comfort? It's not all the time. It depends, right? You said there are times you can just cry with that person. In this case, what do you suggest? I know it's a case to case, but is it still okay to give words of comfort when it's time to do so? I'm just clarifying kasi others might think wala na lang silang sasabihin at all
Yeah,
ever.
yeah.
Yeah, but the word
Hindi
of
naman
God is our
mag-NR,
comfort.
diba? Hindi naman tayo mag-NR dyan, no? Pero ang ibig sabihin nito is, see things from the person's perspective first. Ilagay mo yung sarili mo sa kanila. Kasi kadalasan, we're so enmeshed with our own thoughts and our own emotions. And, we bring our own experiences. But at that moment, it's that person we are listening to which is most important, 'di ba? Kaya nga tayo nandun eh. Kung hindi natin kung hindi tayo willing makinig, aba wag na tayong magpanggap, 'di ba? So, to listen means to open our hearts and minds to see it from the point of view of that person. If you have to say anything, you can say. Sometimes when people say I understand, but they really don't understand, that's not even good enough. If you
Mm.
haven't been through that situation, it's plastic to say I understand. No, you don't really understand. That is why, even as a psychologist, I think I became better at listening when I when I went through it myself. And then I can say I understand. And then when they say to me, how can you understand? You haven't been through what I'm going through. Then I share my own life story, which helps the person believe that I am authentically, genuinely, and sincerely listening and caring. So I think that is what we need to communicate, that sincerity. So if you haven't been through that kind of an adversity, don't say I understand. You can just say, I may not understand fully what you're going through, but I'm here for you. What can I do for you? How may I help you? No, wag na tayo magpanggap na naintindihan natin kasi lahat ng pagsubok sa buhay talaga is very unique to each person. And unless we can really share something, a part of ourselves that has been broken, that has been injured, that has been sick and ill and lost, then we cannot really connect. And so sometimes we think that it's the good things that connect us with people, how successful we are, etc. Guess what? It's really more of all these crises and adversities that connect us and make us more human and able to really help each other. Otherwise, we'll always feel superior over each other, entitled to, our ways. We can't even be patient with each other. Why? Because, we're just thinking of ourselves. I don't know if that kind of shed light.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay.
thank you. And Riva, you know what? Si Tita Marissa really helped me so much during my depression time. Sabi ko sa
Thank
inyo,
God for Tita Marissa.
Tita, baka feeling ko nagkape ka na naman eh. Ang dami mo na namang inputs.
Okay.
No, maybe we
Teka
can.
lang ha.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We,
go
we
ahead.
can ask, yeah, we can ask Darwin and Rara. What were the things that people told you that comforted you, and what were the things that people told you that made you feel worse? Although maybe you were so polite
Hmm.
to say anything against it. I mean, I'm saying something here, and perhaps let's listen to Rara
Yeah,
and Darwin in terms of what helped them and what didn't help them.
yeah.
Sige
Yeah,
nga.
That's good. Yeah,
yes.
Rara.
Ako, grabe. I think baka magkaroon tayo ng book for this. Joke. Actually, the one thing that really discouraged me before when I got depressed, whenever people compare me to other people, na parang sasabihin nila na, no, you know what, parang this person got diagnosed also with cancer before and she lived by ganito ilang taon, blah, blah, blah. Ganyan. So parang okay lang yan kasi stage 1A ka lang naman. So ako parang, really? Cancer is cancer? Parang even if it's stage 1A or stage 4B, cancer is cancer. Tapos, yun yung talagang doon ako natatamaan before. But there are people, minsan, ang sakit pa minsan, di ba? Parang, ito pa yung mga non-believers. Sila pa yung mas nakaka-encourage sa atin. Minsan, yun yung sampal minsan sa atin. Ito yung minsan magsasabi sa'yo na, I still believe in you. I know in my heart, you will carry this through. Yun yung mga pinanghawakan ko na lang in the past. So I waited, Tita Marissa even advised me before, Ra, can you just go na to a psychiatrist? Kasi parang hindi na niya ako makaya. Mga panahon mo, na? As in talagang parang I was so catatonic to her. If I reply to her, if she will ask me questions, para talaga akong catatonic. Wala, alam mo yung parang sasagot lang ako, pero parang wala lang. Para lang akong nakahang that time. But of course, sabi
Mm-mm.
ko sa kanya, Tita, parang okay lang ako ng okay. She even told me to consult si youngest daughter ni Pastor Peter. Sabi niya, do you want me to consult Caroline for you? Mga ganyan-ganyan na. So parang ako teka lang, pagod na ako emotionally that time. But of course, I really waited for the Lord to really reveal His face again to me. And yun nga, breast CA ang naging breakthrough ko.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So maybe can I input there because nga
Sure.
For me, like if things get out of control, of course, medication is available. It's not for everybody, but if you want to have a little bit of help, I'm open to that. Working with a psychiatrist specifically for cases that the person really is in great suffering, and sometimes. It's difficult to have any form of therapy or any form of intervention with somebody who's so deep into something that need a little bit of control of medication. So I work closely with psychiatrists. It's not an end all be all. Okay, there's a lot of work to do even if you take medication or even psychotherapy. You have to do a lot of work for yourself. But yes, I mean, I was concerned about Rara, and so I said, you know what, I'm not talking with you 24/7. I'm not there beside you. If you really need relief, I don't think it's gonna be sinful or less of a person if you consult a doctor. And I know that Carolyn is an integrative medicine doctor, which includes, of course, nutrition, lifestyle change, and even the mind. And so it was something like, okay, this might help you, okay, and if that's okay with you. So yeah, I mean, Darwin perhaps could also share with us what helped him and what didn't help him.
Yung sa akin naman po nung nag-start ako sa church, yung discrimination that I felt was, parang yung unang level kasi is yung sa homosexuality. The church somehow, even though na may ministry na rin naman sa CCF about sa gender challenge na person, kaso parang nagkaroon ng added level pa dahil naging drug addict po. And then another level pa, which is HIV positive. So parang yung sa pag-handle pa lang ng church about gender challenge is already not good enough. May tatlong patong pa. Eh, nung time na yon may nagsabi sa akin na, alam mo nung sinabi ng kasalanan, ikaw yung umako ng lahat. Then na-offend ako. Sabi ko, di ba si Jesus yung umako? Hindi naman ako. Parang kasi yung comparison nila palagi is, ako yung mas makasalanan compare sa kanila. So sabi ko, akala ko sa mata ng Panginoon pare-pareho lang yung kasalanan. Diba? But bakit sa inyo may comparison? Eh pareho naman tayong makasalanan. We are saved by grace. So yung sa akin, tama yung sinabi ni Doc, mas pipiliin ko na lang na pakinggan ako. And then just, alam mo yun, yung, alam mo na nakikinig sila talaga rather than yung telling me na, ay, we understand or I understand, but then pagtalikod ko, may ikukwento silang iba about sa akin, which is parang imbis na nakatulong, lalong napasama. Kumbaga, unfortunately, sa church kasi, yun we are all not perfect, but then, yun in order for you to really minister to others, mas better is kung napagdaanan mo siya, kasi mas ma-explain mo sa kanya kasi na ito yung pinagdaanan ko. And I hope and I pray na gano'n din yung maging encounter mo with the Lord. Parang gano'n. So agree na agree po ako sa sinabi ni Dr. Marissa kanina.
Yeah, so thank you for that. Before we, here, from Clara de Jesus Riantaso, go Best Rara, praising God for your life.
Right.
Okay,
Ay,
Thank
nako,
you,
so,
Carla.
BFF yan.
We have your
Masyado siyang,
cheerleader,
masyado
Rara.
siyang bias.
That's
ano
because
na,
she knows you, Rara, so she can say that.
Yes, she really knows me
yeah.
Yeah.
so well.
Walang bias yan. Totoo.
Okay,
Yes.
so before we
Chicken.
continue, I'd like to remind everybody, if you have any questions for our guests, please just type them in the chat box and then we'll read them for you later. Okay, so para lahat ng pwede niyong itanong, ito na. I also want to just comment, no, Doc, I really love the definition of depression, which is the fracture of the heart and mind. Parang nakakaiyak, di ba? The fracture of the heart and mind because it's a real thing. Diba? Kaya, yeah, if we can just keep quiet and listen, I think that's the best. And then pray, no? Pray for them. And then maybe later on, we can send some encouraging things. di ba?
Okay,
Okay, so
Chiki,
yes,
I'd
let's
like
go.
to add, I mean, of course, that's just my version of trying to explain depression because people have a difficult time
Yes,
acknowledging it as a legitimate illness. So
yes,
sometimes I also use the analogy of the cancer of the mind and heart. It's like something's eating up, your happy neurons, and you can't explain it, but the best way for me to explain to lay people is to imagine that there's cancer in your capacity to be happy. It's eating it up, and therefore ang natira na lang ay depression. So sometimes I go to that extent to explain the
mm,
fracture is like an analogy with a broken leg, 'di ba? Something
yeah,
broke inside you, and sometimes
yeah,
we don't see it coming because we don't like to attend to our little injuries inside us. Like, for example, if somebody rejects you or somebody snaps at you or you have trials, these are little injuries that build up inside us. Not losing someone or hearing a painful comment, we suffer this every day, but we don't mind it. So when we don't really attend to these internal illnesses, injuries, pains, wounds, it builds up. Pero pag nagkaroon tayo ng sugat, ay agad-agad nagfa-first aid tayo, nililinis natin ng betadine, nilalagyan natin ng pinapahangin pa natin. Immediate pagka physical. Pero yung emotional, psychological, and mental injuries, we don't mind it. So when it explodes, it becomes so bad. And then people start making all kinds of comments and,
yeah.
"Ay, kaya mo yan," et cetera, et cetera. 'Di ba? Hindi na yun nakakatuwa. Yeah.
Oo, that's the problem nga eh. When it's internal, we just set it aside. But like what you said, you can postpone, but you cannot run away from it. You really have to face it and address it. And I think that's also one of the reasons why a lot of cancer patients get cancer because of that depression that they never wanted to address or they never accepted na meron silang depression. So it eats you up eh. So
It's the
anyway,
same.
moving
It's the
on.
same. Mm.
Sige, moving on. Did you, no, Rara and Darwin, did you ever doubt God's goodness or did you bargain with God? At saka what did you hang on to? Kasi during the time, depressed ka talaga, di ba? You're in like a tunnel and you don't
Yeah.
know where you're gonna go. It's so dark. Meron bang ending tong bad scene sa buhay mo? Where did you get your strength? From that, where did you get your strength, tapos how did you move on from that particular point? Rara, can we start with you?
You know what, Chiki? I never doubt God's goodness in my life. But it was so hard for me during that time because I was really in a dark room of depression. Pag tumilaok nga yung manok before, ayoko eh. Kasi it's another day again, parang I really felt so useless that time. And of course, it was the moral support and concern of my family and close friends who really, yan. Andyan si Carla. Carla, yung nag-comment kanina. Yan. So, she was really there for me. My brother, of course, Tita Zelda, my cousin. They were really there for me to really boost my my mental agility. Tama ba ako, Tita Marisa? Mental agility? Sabi kasi sa akin ni Tita Marisa, do not use mental toughness. Nako, ano na yan? Luma na yan, okay? Use mental agility. Okay, alam mo naman yan, sobrang dunong ng kaibigan kong yan. Kaya ako, whenever she speaks to me, sobra akong wow. Talagang ang dami-dami ko natututunan from her. Yes. Of course, Shiki, I really bargained with the Lord. I said, Lord, please make me well. I will serve you again. Ganyan ako makipag-bargain kay God before, ah. And you know what? I have two friends who are also battling with cancer right now. That's L.A. Tenorio. Siguro kilala niyo siya, PBA player. So he has stage 3 colon cancer. And also si Kachi, she is battling with cancer since 2021. Okay. And I said, Lord, if you are really helping these two friends of mine, Lord, I know in my heart also that you're gonna do it for me also. That you will see me through, that you will help me, you're gonna embrace me every day, and you're gonna really just be with me and comfort me every step of the
Mm-mm.
way.
Thank you. Darwin, I have a question then, no, for you. Kasi masakit yung pag sinabi ng mother na pamangkin kita, but you're
Mm-mm.
actually the son. How did you get out of that? Syempre, I'm sure there was like anger maybe in your heart or depression, right? Kasi na-reject ka ng mom mo. So, how did you get yourself from that state to a different state?
Paano ba? Before I met the Lord kasi, ganun yung parang feeling ko na sinumpa ako. Na sabi ko, Lord, may iba pong mas masama pa kaysa sa akin. Why me? So, yun yung mga questions na wala akong mahanap na answer. And then, katulad kay Rara, ako, na, nahanap ko si Jesus nung nagkaroon ako ng HIV. So when I was in the hospital, someone shared the gospel to me. So may ministry sa CCF kasi that goes to the hospital to share the gospel. And yung sinabi niya sa akin, naniniwala ka ba na walang aksidente sa Panginoon? And that Jesus can forgive everything na ginawa ko. Kasi nga parang nung time na yon, ayaw ko talaga magpagamot. Kasi nga, anong sense kung patay naman na tingin sa akin ng parents ko. So, nung time na sabi ko, sige Lord, since nawala naman na lahat sa akin, ano po ba mawala sa akin? If I truly believe that Jesus can forgive me and Jesus will become my Lord and my Savior. So, nung time na yon, I accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior. So, that was November 2017. Tandang-tanda ko yun kasi doon rin ako nag-start ng ARV treatment. So it was my encounter with the Lord na somehow doon nag-change yung perspective ko as I grow deeper sa faith. Paunti-unti doon ko nakukuha din yung mga sagot. Kasi before, I was blaming everything to my father. Siya yung dahilan kung bakit naging bakla ako. Siya yung naging dahilan kung bakit naging drug addict ako. And then siya rin naging dahilan kung bakit may HIV ako. But as I grew deeper kay Lord, I realized na it was the consequence of my action. Di naman niya sinabi na ganun gawin ko. It was me. But yun nga, unfortunately nga lang yun. Kaya nung time na yun, nung nakilala ko na si Lord, I went back and told my father na wala siyang kasalanan, na it was all on me. Kasi bilang parents, alam ko na he was also asking the questions saan siya nagkamali eh. But then I told him na he was a good father, na despite na pinalayas ako, he has to do it eh. Kasi kung hindi hindi ko magtatanda kung hindi ko nadanas yung maging panaboy ng sa kalsada.
Thank you, Darwin, for honestly sharing that. And the Lord redeems naman talaga. And we see that how He's turned the worst of your times to the best of times with the Lord. But it doesn't mean na hindi na sad si Darwin or wala na siyang problema. Iba na lang yung way niya of dealing with it now because he's walking with God.
Correct.
Yes. Compared to before na parang feeling niya mag-isa lang siya. Ayan. So, Rara, what made you snap out of your depression? And I know you, of course, had your time with Doc Marissa. You mentioned your friends and family were there for you, prayer warriors, your small group. But what was that turning point that altered your emotion or how you felt about everything?
Yeah, thank you, Riva. You don't believe it, ah? My breakthrough was my breast CA. When I got diagnosed, on the day of my diagnosis, I had my mental agility again. O, tita, tama ba my term?
Yeah. The reason why I was explaining to Rara that being mentally tough is not usually good because you can break because you're too tough, 'di ba? Sobrang tigas ng paningin mo. Pero when you say agility, kaya mo talagang mag-bend, backward, front, side, 'di ba? It's really you're more alert in terms of adapting to the circumstances. And I just like to elaborate on what Rara is saying. Is it possible that somebody's diagnosis becomes her way out of depression? Yes, because in Rara's case, it made her feel alive at that moment. Because when
Yes.
you're depressed, you feel dead. You don't feel anything. It's like nag-flatline ka sa emotions mo, di ba? Think about flatlining. Flatlining is you're dead, no? So emotionally, you're kind of flatlining when you're depressed. And with Rara's case, when she got diagnosis, biglang nagkaroon ng spike, 'di ba, dun sa kanyang flatline. Yung spike na yan reminded her that she's alive. So, a lot of people may not be able to understand that or make sense of it, but it does. It really does because it gets you out of that flat line. And so she suddenly became active. She became proactive in terms of her health, which disappeared when she was depressed, di ba? As she was explaining and describing it earlier, everything that she used to enjoy, she no longer enjoyed. And that's really a symptom of depression. And that's why people get confused. And sometimes your closest friends or family turn away from you. Kasi dati mo naman gawin yan eh. Kunyari, magsisine tayo, pumapay ka. Ngayon, lahat ayaw mo, lahat complain, lahat nagrarant. Diba? But that's part of being depressed, no? And suddenly, when she got her diagnosis, she felt alive again, feeling the need to go for healing, feeling again connected to the Lord. Na Lord, it's you and me. Now, this is our fight. Suddenly even her faith became alive. Conversations with people became meaningful. Talking with the doctor signified, hope, etc., etc. I don't know. I'm not putting words into your mouth, Rara, but looking at it from the outside, and even at that point when you were telling me about it, I really understood, and it really made sense. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I beat depression when I went back again to face-to-face worship, to D group, consistent and wonderful conversations with my D group leader, with Alma Sasa, di ba? So, yun, slowly, I went back to all the things that I used to love. Slowly, slowly talaga. Then before my surgery, I went to the salon and my derma BFF said, "You should be beautiful before your surgery." Sabi ko,
Galing
"Oh,
ah. Ba't
okay."
ba hindi ko naisip yan?
And of course, I had my derma procedures also. In short, I need to love myself again.
Yeah. Nice. Okay.
Yes. How about
Riva?
yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Tricky.
No, I was just leading you to the next.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, uh, ang ganda nung sinabi ni Rara and Doc Marisa na uh, definitely it took something to wake her up, and God used that diagnosis. So I know it's different for everyone. So this is just
Yes.
of course in Rara's case, but it's an encouragement for those who are dealing with something also na maybe you don't see what it's for, but definitely God will use it in a way that
Yeah.
maybe we least expect, because God's ways are higher than ours. But in Rara's
Yeah.
case, she was despite what she was going through, she was still sensitive to the Lord's leading. And alam natin
Yeah.
na that's what really helps, kasi we're still connected to God. So like what you said,
Mm-mm.
Rara, you didn't question or doubt the Lord, but of course you were battling so many things as well. But what helped is you were really clinging to God, and still are right now. That's why you're here. Yeah. So how about you, Darwin? What helped you get out of where you are, where you were
Ah,
pa before? Sorry.
yung katunong nabanggit ko po kanina, it was my relationship with the Lord as I grew deeper sa faith kasi. Uh, sa pagiging drug addict kasi I never went to rehab. So I think it was the Lord who really yung change of mind na talagang change yung pattern ko from what I used to do, I do not want to do it na. So parang every word na nababasa ko, it became real to me. And parang yun sa pagiging homosexuality, dahil sa pagmamahal ko sa Lord, na I don't want to hurt Him. So mas mahal ko na siya over myself. So yung temptation will always be there kung may gwapong dumaan, date papatingin. But then, yung kung dive in ako into sin again, hindi na kasi mas mahal ko na talaga yung Panginoon. So, yun yung sagot ko po is talagang yung anchor ko is kay Lord Jesus.
Yeah, I just wanna comment, no, whether I just realized when you were sharing, whether it's cancer or HIV, totoo talaga yung sinabi ni Doc Marissa na the heart of the Lord is compassionate. Kasi di ba, when you had HIV, that's when you got saved for Darwin. And then
Yes,
when
correct.
Rara had cancer, stage 1, pero that's when nag-spark back to life. Di ba, yung ano mo, yung pananaw mo sa buhay. So, you can tell, even if these are scary, HIV and cancer, it's still given to you with so much compassion and love. No, na brought you back. Matay yung balahibo ko. Yes. Okay.
Yes. And Shiki, of course,
Yeah.
for those who are not sick naman, the Lord can still use other situations. It's just that for Darwin, it was HIV, and for Rara, it was cancer. We're
Yeah.
not saying na kailangan may ganong diagnosis para magising kayo. Well, God has a different story for each one. But ultimately, it's really responding to what the Lord is showing us through the circumstances that He allows for us to go through. So, we see here also Darwin and Rara. Tingnan mo, nakasmile sila, oh. 'Di ba? And this doesn't mean, like I said, they're okay all the time. As Dr. Lee said, we're not meant to be happy 24/7. That's so abnormal, and God didn't design us that way. But let's find out, Dara and Rara, I'm sure people are curious, how's your present situation? Because we've been talking about where you came from, how the Lord used this, and how about now? How do you maintain the attitude that you have despite what you're facing? And I know you're not always happy, but what's your current approach, with the things that you're dealing with? Rara?
Yeah, I will be having my radiation therapy very soon. I really praise and thank the Lord. I won't be able to have my chemotherapy anymore. Grace upon grace and favor upon favor. The bonus part is that I have medical support that encouraged me big time. Yan. These are my 4 doctor friends who are always there for me. I really treasure them so, so much. And of course, these are the friends who really understood my worst and my best times. They were my 911. 911 ko talaga yung mga yan. I have friend, derma friend, ER doctor friend, and now my breast surgical oncologist.
Yes, we
Wow.
need our
Praise God.
911, our
Yeah, my
group of
911.
trusted, yes, doctors who are compassionate and caring. So thank God for that. Yeah, how about for you, Darwin?
Ako naman, I'm continuing my antiretroviral treatment every day. Uh, Even though my immune system count is not that still high, but I'm already undetectable. So meaning di na po ako nakapanghawa sa iba. Uh, and then sa pagiging PLHIV ko naman, it was late treatment. So I am blind na po sa left eye, completely blind sa left eye, and then I also have a hearing loss sa right ear. But I praise God dahil hindi niya kinuha yung dalawang sight ko or yung dalawang hearing ko, and that my disability hindi siya ganun kahalata until I say it. And then sa family naman, nagkapatawaran na rin naman kami ng family Uh, but then, may iba kasing plan talaga din si Lord sa akin. So, I know that the Lord will continue to protect them kahit nasa malayo sila. And ako nandito sa Baguio as I continue to serve Him sa ministry na binigay niya sa akin. To be honest, kumbaga kung ano yung meron ako ngayon, it's already a bonus. Kasi nung sinave niya ako from yung something na walang kwenta sa society to someone that is being used by the community, yun yung pinanghahawakan ko na alam mo yan, he is really my rock, my strong foundation.
Grabe, I'm so inspired by your testimonies and so educated by Doc. So, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you for your stories. Pero teka lang curious lang ako, naku Rara, if you don't mind, I hope you don't mind, okay? Don't worry. I need to ask you something, but it's not about your age. So don't worry about that. Eto tanong ko. Huwag mo akong sampalin, ha? Is being single a choice?
Yes. And I am
Wow.
very proud of it. I am happily single.
Wow, that's so
And
nice.
ready to
That's a
mingle?
gift.
Ready to mingle.
Okay. You may type on the chat box if you want
Yes.
me to.
How about you, Darwin? Is being single a choice?
Ako kasi, I'm having a relationship with the Lord eh. Kaya I really don't feel single. And I
Galing.
think the Lord will really give me, kumbaga, may perfect timing siya for me kapag He thinks na I'm already ready. Katulad sabi ko nga kahapon na kung ako nga sarili ko medyo hirap pa akong buhayin yung sarili ko, mag-a-add pa ako ng another one para so I know that the Lord will give me the right person at the right time. Kailangan ko lang maghintay. Patiently wait. But for now, relationship with Him.
Amen.
Truly satisfied in the Lord. Bonus na nga, sabi ni Darwin. Everything is a bonus when you're so satisfied in the Lord. Yeah. Nakaka-inspire. Yeah, so we're about to head to our Q&A where people's questions will be read. So those of you who have questions, please type it on the chat box or on the comment section if you're on our Facebook live channel. But before that, last question for Doc Marissa for this part of our interview. We've been talking about happiness, right? And most people think it's a state of mind. Some say it's a choice. So regardless of what you're going through, you can choose to be happy or see the brighter side of things. But is it something we can learn, develop as a discipline? What is it really, and what can we do for us to stay happy? What, like you said, it's not about being happy all the time, or maybe for some bounce back after an unhappy episode or before sadness turns into depression. So basically, is it a choice, a state of mind? Is it something we can do something about, or is it something that we just have to look for over and over again? I know we've discussed this, but just to sum up our
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah, of course, many social scientists are trying to understand, the mechanics of being happy, and that's why I shared with you some of the key ideas that have been found. No, but can we do something to stay happy or be happy? Yes, we can. No, knowing fully well what truly makes people happy can help us refocus our minds on what is really meaningful and what is significant in terms of our relationships. We can check all of these, no, but if you'd like, if I know our viewers or our listeners would like to have some formula of sorts, and I always get this question or inquiry when I give talks, no, of course there are psychologists who've studied how to be happy, and if it will help not to share with you that it's not just in the mind, it's not something you wait for, it's something also that you can actively do so that you are in a good position or in a good space to receive happiness and to be happy, no. So first of all is, of course, we have to learn how to cultivate emotions that are uplifting. No, if we had to choose, for example, to ranting and being grateful, or to looking at what's good in people, choosing, of course, the more positive emotion of appreciating people rather than complaining about what they can't do. As simple as, like, crew in a restaurant or something, when we have, for instance, that instinct to complain, and then we realize that, okay, even if I'm a paying customer, this person is so overworked already, perhaps I can smile and call him or her by her name and ask, um, could you follow up on my order, rather than, kanina pa ako naghihintay dito, di ba? I mean, little things, to be aware and mindful of what sort of emotions we are cultivating at each moment in time. And that's where the choice happens, no? That there are options on how to feel at a certain point in time. Of course, there are events in our life, like emergency cases, that you don't have much choice, or at least the bandwidth is narrower, diba? But still, you can make choices. So choosing positive emotions is an active thing. I'm not talking here about toxic positivity where everything is positive. No, no, it's like you acknowledge your range of emotions, and you can stay with grieving if that is the call of the time. But even in your grief, you can include gratitude and appreciation for people who are there for you, for instance. So that's the P, no? And if you really look deeper out there, there's this what we call the framework of PERMA, no? It's to make it easier. So P there is positive emotions, and E is engagement. Find something that you are truly engaged in, whether it's your ministry, it's a hobby, or even it's reading a book or watching whatever movie that you really enjoy, or being in a sport. So engagement, find something that you feel and you are enjoying. You're not counting the cost, you're not doing it for money, or you're losing track of time, because when you're doing it, you're happy. So it could be something as simple as, for some people, like crochet, crochet or something simple. So anything that you lose your sense of time and counting the cost can be very engaging. For some people, it's work, but of course, that can go overboard. And then there's
Yeah.
relationship. The key there is relationship, no, PERMA. So there's an R there in the middle, which I mentioned a while ago is significant. Among all of these letters, the PERMA, the R is, I think, the most important, because if we lose connection with people, and that includes our relationship with God, all the other things will be meaningless, diba? Even if you have positive emotions, you're engaged with something. If you lose connection with people who matter to you and to God, then that's the whole thing will fall apart. So, and then the M there, okay, is meaning. We've been talking about it a while ago in terms of finding meaning in what's happening in the HIV, in the cancer. If this is our wake up call, if this is the loving reminder, if this is the gift that the Lord has given to us, then that is what we call the meaning. Okay. And then A is, of course, a sense of achievement or accomplishment. One of the things that our youth suffer nowadays is, that the sense of achievement in the number of likes, like what you said a while ago, and feeling that the achievement is less if you have less likes in your social media. So finding that true sense of achievement, what is really worth achieving in this life. And sometimes, for people who have lost that sense of belief in oneself, like I think what Darwin was saying a while ago, he was looking at that achievement that was acceptable to his parents, but later on, where he is now, what he's achieving for other people, the message that he's trying to give, the message of hope to other people. And also for Rara to be able to go back, for instance, to what she used to enjoy. These are forms of achievement. And then H, kasi may perma with an H, is health, di ba? You got to be active. It's very difficult to remain cheerful and happy if physically you're sedentary, or not moving at all. So physical activity for some people, it's just simple, like doing housework or what, and exercise or sport if that is it's up, available to you, being physically active and taking care of your health, no? So nutrition is part of that, taking care of the body. So on a daily level, it's like you need to take care of that battery. Just like your cell phone, you will not make it empty, go to the red or go power off. You gotta do that for ourselves as well. No? So taking care of ourselves is like taking care of our internal battery. We've got to recover our lost energy whenever we do something. And that doesn't happen automatically. It has to be mindful. So I don't know if I was able to put it in a nutshell. If you've got to remember, it's like PER.
Galing! I'm so glad I attended today. Grabe yung PERMA na PERMA.
PERMA.
PH kasi sa dulo. PERMA.
Ah,
Okay.
and the
So,
PERMA.
positive emotions. Ito,
Sorry, go
sabihin
ahead,
ko lang,
Cindy.
for you
PERMA.
guys who did not catch it, PERMA with an H, positive emotions, engage in activity, yung relationships, take care of those, find meaning, okay, in your situation, and then have a sense of accomplishment or achievement. The important question is, what's worth achievement? What's worth achieving in life? Diba? What is it? Is it really your work or
PERMA.
what? And then health, be active. Yun nga. Alam mo, meron sa YouTube, yung walking. Ayan. So, if you can't go out because it's raining, ayan, mag-exercise kayo walking. Grabe, papawisan kayo. All right. So, up next
Yeah.
is our Q&A portion, which is the favorite of everybody because you guys can ask your questions. Just type them in the chat box and then we'll read them. Just make it short, ha? Ayan, para nakikita natin, nagkakasya sa chat box. So, the first question is from Elaine Pernites. When did you realize that it's already depression that you felt? How long did it last? What brought about you having the breakthrough from it? It is a friend. Is it a friend? Bible verse? Your decision to choose to change. I think this was kind of
Yeah.
answered na
Answer
kanina,
na.
right? But just to reiterate na
Yeah.
lang.
And I think
Let's
there's
hear
a
it
question
first
here
from,
na when did you realize it was already depression? Because Doc Marisa also
yes.
mentioned earlier the definition. Some people nasad lang to depressed na sila. Yeah,
Oo,
I
hindi
think
ganun
this
yun.
word is used so loosely sometimes na I'm depressed. Yeah, diba? So
Yeah.
for Rara, ano yung, what did it take for you to realize na, oh, totoong depression na to? Yung totoo talaga, hindi yung for the day lang. Yeah.
Yeah, when I really, that I really hate yung the things that I used to do, ayoko na siyang gawin. Depression na talaga. Sabi nga ni Tita Marisa sa akin nun, buti na lang ikaw, you recognize it, and naiintindihan mo kasi maraming nadidepress na hindi nila alam na depressed sila. Ako kasi, it was recognized. Naiintindihan ko siya. So, alam mo yung I withdrew from people, gustong-gusto ko yun because I am really a people person. Di ba? Ayoko lumabas, ayokong mag-dinner with friends. Lagi akong ganun before. Basta yung mga love ko, ayoko siyang gawin. So sabi ko na, of course, masyado akong ma-research. So ang dami kong binasa about ganyan. Plus, of course, ang aking inputs ng Tita Marisa. And she diagnosed with my GAD, tama ba tita? It's a generalized anxiety disorder. So when she told me about GAD, nag-research ako ng tritrible, from which yun talaga ang nangyari sa akin. GAD means kasi, the things that you loved before, used to do it, ayaw mo na siyang gawin. Yun yung simple, tama ba ako, Tita Marisa? Parang ganun yata siya. So I don't know if, kung tama yung mga pinagsabi ko, sorry. Pero parang ganun siya. So ako, parang, sabi ko, grabe, talagang na to, ayokong mag-worship face-to-face. I am so conscious with people. I am so conscious kung anong sasabihin nila sa akin. But when I had nung bumalik ako for face-to-face worship, mag-group na ulit ako face-to-face, sabi ko, Lord, in just one click, in just one day, okay na pala ako. And then I went out again. Of course, I went out again. Yung kanina yung sinabi ko na nag-salon ulit ako. Ayoko mag-salon before for 9 months. Ayoko mag-shopping for 9 months. 9 months yan, para talaga ako nagbuntis ng depression. But of course, I waited for the Lord to really move. Kasi ang sinasabi ko nun kay Tita Marissa, kasi sabi Tita Marissa, pinangungunahan ako niya. Sabi niya, so is there any hesitation na ayoko daw bang pupunta ng psychiatrist? Kasi ang scary part on me before was ayoko talagang uminom ng gamot. Kasi baka, kasi sabi ni Tita Marissa, no, it can help you. Of course, I know it can help me. Medically, I also understand that. But meron akong hesitation talaga to do it. So, I really prayed so hard. Kaso, yun nga, last May, sumakit tong dibdib ko, yun na. On the day of my diagnosis, when I had my mammogram and ultrasound, when the doctor said it was malignant, and after that, after mammogram and ultrasound, biopsy agad. Of course, malignant ulit. Actually, when I had my pains on my breast, alam ko talaga malignant yun. Na-confirm lang talaga ng mga procedures. Pero, alam mo yung ano ka na, ayoko pumunta ng hospital kasi alam ko talaga malignant siya. But of course, the Lord has had so many ways for me to really bring it on. Di ba? So, I really thank the Lord na yun na yung naging breakthrough ko talaga. And you know what now? Meron nga akong isang friend pa eh. She's also a cancer patient siya before. Survivor siya. For 2 cancer na. She said na ang magkakaroon ka ng cancer, it's really a gift. Dadagdagan ko yun Yes, of course, yung cancer is a gift. But I always have to remember the giver of that gift. And that is Jesus. That's it.
Yes.
How about
Wow. Good for Darwin. Sige.
Darwin?
Ako naman, ako kasi hindi siya clinically depression. But nung time na yun kasi I really was thinking of ending my life. Nag-isip na ako either magpasagasa or tumalon na lang sa ilog. But nung time na yun kasi parang without me knowing, the Lord is protecting me na rin talaga. But parang yun nga, as I grow deeper sa faith niya, I realize na somehow it was the Lord's way of setting me apart. Na parang I felt privileged pa nga na winan-on-one ako ng Lord doon sa journey na yan Kasi no time na yan, binasag niya lahat pati yung pride ko. Kasi from someone earning 6 digits, tas wala, and then you're begging for food and money. Ang hirap pa kasi, di ba? I used to be the giver, tapos ako yung manghihingi. Ang hirap. So yung sa iba, feeling nila cliche yung sasabihin ko, but it was the real encounter with Jesus nung time na yun na alam mo yun, dinala niya ako Parang he managed to get me through everything na from darkness to light. So kung yung tanong is kung yung breakthrough is a Bible verse or a friend, yung sagot ko is really yung encounter with Jesus. Yun yung pinaka for me.
Yeah, may I add something? Yeah, I think just going back to the earlier question about how do you know it's depression, and then Rara introduced the topic of the generalized anxiety disorder. I think the reason why I asked Rara to read about it is because she was also exhibiting a lot of anxiety for every little thing. If you remember, Rara, lahat na lang pati yung kung anong kakainin niya, 'di ba? Kung anong ulam
Ano
for
isusuot
today.
ko? Anong
Oo,
isusuot ko?
yeah, so when she was describing that, and you know what, yeah, it was I was actually, di ba, Rara, I was actually in Europe at the time of our
Yes.
conversations, di ba, na magkaibang time zone kami noon when she was telling me all these things. And so listening to her, it wasn't really depression. Of course, she was very sad, but nangingibabaw kasi dun sa ano sa version niya yung anxiety for the smallest thing. And so I said, you might be actually suffering from generalized anxiety disorder, which is of course like another condition which involves excessive or unrealistic anxiety in almost all aspects of your life, diba? And then it has symptoms of increased, impaired concentration, inability to sleep, muscle tension, which of course can mask itself like depression, na nawawalan ka tuloy ng gana to do anything. So again, we don't want our viewers to self-diagnose, no? Just like for physical, what you call this, illnesses. So if you're in doubt, or if you really have, you're worried about your condition, consult a mental health professional. It is not, a lot of people don't like going to psychologists or psychiatrists because of the stigma, no? Pag pumunta ka sa psychologist or psychiatrist, baliw ka na, at you're gonna be discriminated, and they'll think you're weak in faith. Ayan na naman tayo dito sa weak in faith, or you don't pray enough or whatever, di ba? So there's a lot of stigma, and that's the reason why people's conditions go undiagnosed. 'Di ba? So, kasi nga, we classify it. Pag doktor, acceptable yan. Yung doktor din naman ako. So, for example, people don't like to consult me because, psychologist ka pala, hindi ka pala doktor. Totoo. Pero tawag mo sa akin, kwak-kwak.
Oo nga.
Legit si Doc Marita.
Yeah. So, yeah, I just make fun of it. But really, going to your mental health professional is just like going to your dentist or doctor for check-up. Paano mo malalaman ang treatment kung di ka nagpa-check-up? Eh di magsi-self-diagnose ka, mamaya mali pa. So, I encourage
Yeah.
everybody to be open to that, so that when your friend also goes to a mental health professional, hindi ka rin magja-judge. Kasi it's
Yeah.
a very ordinary, normal thing to do, to consult a health professional rather than si Dr. Google ang iyong laging kinokonsult.
I
Correct.
true.
To gather
Nakakatakot.
information, yes, to gather information, but yung final diagnosis, si Rara, alangan namang magbabasa lang siya sa Google dun sa kanyang CA, di ba? Ultimately, kahit ano pang binasa niya, kailangan niyang pumunta sa doktor para
Yeah.
dun sa official diagnosis and treatment. The same also with your mental health issues, di ba? Hindi ka pwede mag-self-diagnose dyan. So,
Yes.
that's
Doc,
Pwede
speaking
po
of
mag-add,
consultation, ay sige, go ahead, Darwin.
yung parang sa HIV din po kasi na they don't want to get themselves tested, and then they will just search sa Google. And then doon na sila mapaparanoid and magkakaroon ng mental breakdown. But then
yes.
yung kailangan po talaga is magpa-test lang for them to know their status. So katulad sinabi nga ni Doc, di naman po masama na magpa-check up. Kasi nga prevention is better than cure, 'di ba? So kaya yun din yung lagi kong sinasabi sa mga clients ko dito na paano niyo po malalaman kung ano yung status niyo if you don't want to get yourself tested, and fear yung mangunguna naman sa kanila. Kasi marami daw sila nararamdaman. HIV wala naman pong symptoms talaga dahil sinisira lang niya yung immune system. So parang ganun. So relate po kay Dr. Marissa.
Yes. Yeah, Doc, so sa consultation, there are people who are asking if they can consult with you. May
It
book
always
na ba yung schedule
happens.
mo?
It's okay. No, first of all, just like doctors, di ba, we all have our own specializations, di ba? You don't go
Okay.
to a cardiologist for an oncology situation, etc. The same with us, no? So if it's really mental health issues, you need to see a clinical psychologist, and we have really regulations on that. No, so I cannot misrepresent myself. I am a social psychologist specializing in sport psychology. Of course, all of us psychologists have general, training in the varieties of practice, but I will not um, attempt to do something that my colleagues will do better and are credentialed to do. So for our viewers, perhaps we could give them links to the different
Okay.
clinics and providers. So asking if I will do it, no, I cannot. It is illegal and unethical. So I will have to refer you to my colleagues who are practitioners in clinical psychology.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Yes.
thank you for clarifying that, Doc. But you guys, we have a few minutes left. I know the conversations are so interesting and you guys have a lot of questions. So what we'll do is we'll flash your questions on the screen and then we'll do rapid fire. Okay. We won't ask everybody to answer. Just ano lang, kung
Mm-mm.
sino yung para sa kanya yung question. Like this
Yes.
one, my faith was questioned because I cannot control my emotion. I cried a lot for every little thing when I was going through chemo and months after my chemo. I wasn't depressed, but I cried when I'm happy. I cried when I'm sad. I was told to control my emotions. Can we really control our emotions? Kasi, di ba, Doc, nandyan yung you can control your emotions. Di ba, may mga ganun eh. So,
Yeah,
sige.
yeah, yeah. Of For I think there are several parts to this question. My faith was questions because I cannot control my emotion. Here we go again, questioning each other's faith. And I think even for if we belong to the same congregation or church, we have to be mindful about questioning each other's faith because only the Lord really knows our faith, no? We may have behaviors that may indicate let's say um levels of faith, but it's for our mentors to say, diba? That's why we have accountability partners or our D group leaders, and we are more intimate with them than others. But if we're not in that level, first of all, it is hurtful to question somebody's faith. That's one.
Yes.
And if the person cannot control the emotion, lalo mo pang trigger yung lack of control. Kasi ngayon, dinagdagan mo pa ng label, no? Hindi ka lang nahihirapan
Yeah.
sa emotion mo, kulang ka pa sa paniniwala kay Lord, 'di ba? Again, here we are.
Yeah.
No, if we are to give a safe space for our members, we have to be mindful of the words we speak because words are so powerful. Even the Bible says, it's like a sword, it can cut through. So, where are we learning our behaviors if we are careless with our words? That's one. And to cry because of joy and pain is normal. Sa sobrang saya mo, naiiyak ka. O anong masama doon? Kung talagang nalulungkot ka, nalulukha ka, ano namang masama nun? Again, we tend to label, we tend to judge each other on how we ought to behave, how we ought to feel. Why can't we first acknowledge the person who is there in front of us? No? So that's one. No? And then the question is, can we really control our emotions? To a certain extent, it's not really more of controlling, it's like more of being mindful because you cannot control something that you're not aware of. So the first step there is to be aware. If you're not aware, then it really will get out of control. Di ba? Kung hindi mo alam na madali kang magalit, at talagang wala kang control, your temper will rise anytime and you blame people. Ikaw kasi ginalit mo ako eh. Di ba? That's the tendency. Yan kasi, yung driver sa harapan ko eh. Nag-cut siya eh. Kaya tuloy, napamura ako, di ba? So, it's not me no anymore. It's that other person. So, it will no long, you will never be able to regulate yourself. And I think that's the better word than control if you're first not aware of your tendencies. Diba? So the first step is to be aware of yourself, not other people, but who you really are, and the terrain and the landscape of your emotions, the fluidity, the volatility of your emotions, etc. Okay? And then to find out also what triggers you. So hindi ka tuturo-turo na lang sa iba lagi parate, no? Madali ako ma-trigger sa taong 'to. Bakit? What does it say about me? Is it all about the other person or about me also? Why am I easily triggered? Does it remind me of my parent who was critical? Does it also remind me of my need to be accepted, my high need to be recognized? Kaya pagka napagsabihan ako, madali ako magalit. So instead of trying to figure out other people, which we cannot control other people. We've got to first understand, be aware of ourselves, understand what makes us tick and what gets us triggered or lose our concentration or temper, whatever it is, and then be mindful of our days so that we are aware and we can regulate. So if I know I'm going to face this person who triggers me, I will prepare myself. If I face this person, for instance, who's very emotionally exhausting, I'm going to energize myself and I'm also going to protect myself, etc. No? So again, self-regulation must be preceded by self-awareness. So that control is really more like regulation, not control. So I don't know if I was able to explain it and to our
It's very
Pretty
viewers.
literal,
well.
Doc. Yes, yes. Management, not control. How to manage that. Yeah. So, ay nako, may follow-up. Paano kung yung source of depression mo kasama mo araw? Neng meta. Oh my.
Yes, yeah, of course naman. No, you don't get depressed or triggered by people who don't matter to you. So the persons who usually hurt us most are the people closest to us, because it's easy to dismiss what people do if they're not close to us, unless of course when you humanize social media, and let's say yung 1 million followers mo biglang bumabang 500, so pinipersonal mo siya kasi nga ang indication ng self-worth mo is the number of followers, no? And so that's a virtual relationship, not a real relationship. So going back to the question ko, kung ang kasama mo sa bahay yung source of depression mo, then find out, no, what are the things that I can do to help myself. What are my feelings that easily get triggered by this person? How will I be able to communicate also to that person that I need his or her help to deal with my depression? So instead of trying to do it all by myself, perhaps communicating it with other family members, so that it's a whole system that supports you, including that person who is the source of the depression. So I know this is not an exact answer, but of course, since I don't know the circumstances, I cannot also pretend to have one answer for your situation. But yeah, it's a whole condition. You cannot just like touch one and everything else will change.
Yes, case to case. Yeah. So, last question na from Evelyn. How do we help people understand self-love, self-care versus narcissism? I think the question is, what is the difference, or like how do we know when we're being narcissists na, or it's just really caring for ourselves as the Lord wants us to care for ourselves?
Okay.
There's a difference. Yeah.
Okay. Let me answer that. First, self care is not equal to selfishness. Okay. And I think this is also a cultural barrier, because in the Philippines, we easily get guilty when we care for selves, especially women who are nurturers. Okay. So, hindi nila gustong in-nurture yung sarili nila or feeling nila guilty. And I say this as a mother because I also think about that, no, na because I'm busy and I'm attuned and focused to taking care of my children through the years. It's like I always put my self-care secondary. No, but you know what? Self-care is a moral obligation for those who take care of other people. Just like when we take our flights, di ba? Before you put on the mask, the oxygen mask on a baby or someone, you put your mask on first. Because kung ikaw naubusan ng hininga, paano mo pa nga tutulungan yung bata or yung kasama mo. So, self-care is a moral obligation to those who dare to take care of others. Because when we don't take care of ourselves, that's when we start imposing on others and we become toxic to other people. So yon, kailangan yon, no, na maintindihan natin na yung self-care is like charging the battery each day. We've got to do it on a daily basis. So for some people, it must be twice a day, lalo na kung napaka-demanding nung trabaho mo o nung ginagawa mo. So that's one, no? And then the question of how do you distinguish narcissism? First of all, narcissism, again, you can say narcissistic as an adjective, that person is narcissistic, or you can talk about the mental health condition. Because when you talk about the narcissistic personality disorder. Again, we're talking here about a mental health condition in which the person or people have an unreasonably high sense of self-importance. And that needs professional diagnosis. So, parang sinabi mo, yung tao, napaka, ano kasi niyan obsessive compulsive na. That's a layman's term. But when you look at the mental health diagnosis, being obsessive compulsive is a mental health disorder, and you wouldn't want to be called obsessive compulsive because that involves obsessive thoughts and compulsive behaviors. Like, you cannot quiet your obsessive thoughts unless you do this compulsive behavior. So, we cannot be throwing around, no? Like, that person is autistic, may sariling mundo. That's such insulting, no? And degrading to people who are actually diagnosed with autism. So, let's avoid throwing around these psychological terms. And so, my answer to that question is, let's be sure that we're in the same wavelength. When you say narcissistic, are you just alluding to your evaluation or judgment of that person as being self consumed, or are you talking about a mental disorder? So I hope I
Thank you. Self-love is a moral obligation, everyone. Okay, so moving on, no, what lessons on happiness would you like our viewers to learn from your personal experience? Okay, so can you give our audience some final words? Because we have to wrap up na eh. I know ang dami nating kwentuhan, no,
Last
but
one.
time doesn't permit. So, give us naman your final words that you would want us to remember from today. So, let's start with Darwin.
Yung sa akin po, yung happiness ko kasi is only found in Jesus. It may sound cliche again, but then yun kasi yung naging encounter ko. Uh, Kaya nandito po ako ngayon sa harapan ninyo to share the testimony and the story of the Lord in my life. Kasi kung buhay ko po yun, wala akong pwedeng maipagmalaki. Wala ring malinis. Si Lord lang yung magandang naging part ng kwento kasi siya yung nag-redeem sa akin, and it was Him who filled me with overflowing love and joy. So yun, I pray and I hope na yun din yung ma-experience ninyo. That's why we're doing this, or I'm doing this, to share God's love and my experience yun rin po. To God be all
And
the
we
glory.
praise God. We
Yeah.
praise God for
Yes.
your story. Truly, it's God's love shining forth. Okay, so how about Rara?
uh,
Oops, you're on mute yet.
Yes, Rara.
Okay, sorry. When I came to realize that the Lord never fails, you will seize and savor the moment that it's only Him who will carry you through. Nobody in this world would do the best thing you are longing for. Only Jesus can.
Thank you. Very powerful. Only Jesus can. Now, Doc Marisa, from your background as a psychologist and a lecturer, counselor, what takeaway lesson on happiness would you like us to remember and live by?
I think that I mentioned a while ago that even in that formulaic prescription of PERMA, relationship is at the heart of our survival as a human race, and a lot of our emotions are anchored on relationships. So in our pursuit of happiness, let's look at that. No, I think let's invest more on our relationships with people rather than things or events. And I think and I agree with Rara and Darwin that relationship is not just human. In fact, the bigger part of it is our relationship with God, and we would it's a very intimate journey that we all have to take to discover that relationship and to put ourselves in that space where the Lord can really transform us. And I would say that many times yung inaayawan nating mahirap, yun ang talagang path to discover the person who would really redefine what happiness is all about. Yung iniiwasan natin, yung sakit, problema, etc. Yan yung kadalasang mangyayari. Hindi ko sinasabing let's chase suffering, no? I'm not advocating naman that we do that. But to have that openness to receive everything as a gift, no, whether it's success or failure, acceptance, rejection, pain, relief, etc. These are all part of the gift of every moment that is given to us. Yeah.
Indeed. So yes, the best investment is first your relationship with God, because that will restore all the other relationships. If we don't begin with our relationship with God, every other relationship will not work. Yes. So thank you, Doc Marissa, Rara, and Darwin. A billion thanks. And our
Yes.
appreciation to our guests. We'd like to have a longer session, but yes, we have to proceed to our breakout session where we invite people to have their chat with other participants. So today, we thank God for the inspiration, and not just the information, but inspiration and the transformation this inspiration will bring forth as we listen to this. So, really, Rara, Darwin, Doc Marisa, I pray that you will not grow weary in sharing what the Lord has placed in your heart. And
Yes.
we are so grateful today to receive that from you. Thank you so much. Yes, but we do not end here. We are inviting you, those of you who are watching in our social media channels, on YouTube, on Facebook, to join us on Zoom, where we continue our discussions and even prayers for those of you who want to be prayed for. It could also be just Thanksgiving. Of course, most of the time there's something we need, but whatever it is that you're praying for, please do join us on Zoom. So the details are there, meeting ID and passcode. And if it's your first time, please go to room number 1, where someone will welcome you. And you don't have to think about if you're going to join this group or what, but we'll take care of that for you. We'll also be showing discussion questions at the end of our broadcast. And this is what you will
Right.
use in your discussion groups. Chicky?
Okay, so everyone goes through hills and valleys dito habang nasa mundo kayo. Okay, tayo. We go through hills and valleys, but we can find happiness in sadness, beauty behind the ugliness. So life is really accepting the gift. Yun na nga na sinabi ni Doc kanina, no? Whether it's good or bad from your perspective, it's a gift for life. So let's choose to make it our goal to be happy no matter what life throws our way. So when life gives you lemons, you make iced lemonade. Ha, dapat happy
Pwede ring
lang
hot.
ha, happy.
Pwede ring hot pag may sore throat.
Pwede rin. Pero mas masarap pag shake. Ha, lemonade shake. Okay.
Yes.
Catching it. Okay, before
Yes.
I bow out, allow me to acknowledge the presence of the Eastern Police District in the audience. Thank you for being with us this morning. And our deepest thanks and appreciation to all of you, our valued viewers, for joining us. Mwah. Please don't
Yes.
forget to like, share, and follow our Facebook and Instagram accounts. There, you see it on your screens. And we are also ringing out a call to those who have a burden to serve the Lord through the Life to the Max ministry, as we are in need of volunteers for backroom tech, creatives, and all that. Yung nakita nyo kanina. Okay?
Yes. And
Riva?
just as a reminder for those of you who are new to Life to the Max, when you look for us on social media, it's CCF Life to the Max. Okay, because if it's just Life to the Max, usually there are other accounts. So just put in CCF Life to the Max as our
Yes.
official name. So tune in again on August 14th. So our monthly, well, technically every month, every twice a month. It's every second and fourth Monday, and our next session, God willing, will be on August 14 at 10 a.m. Philippine time. But yes, if you miss it, there's always the videos are available. It's always there on demand for free by God's grace. So it's been a joy to serve with you today, Chicky. I'm your host, Riva Galvestan. And yes, it's hard to share and summarize everything, but you heard our guests earlier. Ultimately, that happiness we are longing for can only be found in our Lord Jesus Christ. So thank you for joining us. To God be the glory. See you again.
Bye, everyone. Stay safe.